So let's kick this off then. Welcome, guys. Super happy that you're taking your time with this and explaining what Aldrin is and your vision, because you have a really interesting platform with some unique takes on decentralized exchanges that I think many people aren't aware of. And some of that I myself wasn't aware of until I started to read up on what you guys are doing in research prior to this AMA. So thanks for joining and welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Cool. So the first thing I think everybody wants to know here is like, how did you guys get into crypto, and what led that to Aldrin in the end?
Sure. So my background, I guess, if I start with that, is I've been like a product builder for about 10 years. I started off as a business analyst and a project manager in enterprise software implementation projects, and was doing consulting for a number of years. And midway through my career, I ended up at Bloomberg, which is where I got introduced to financial technology side of the world. And throughout kind of this journey, I'd say towards the middle of my career, I started becoming more interested in technologies that would shape our future. So would just read up a little bit on machine learning, AI, a bit about quantum computing. Not at a technical level, like I'm by no means so tech savvy that I can like go deeply into those topics, but more from like, looking at how these technologies would basically shape our future. And so in early 2017, I started, I had an alert on my Bloomberg terminal for any like tech related articles and stuff to kind of like based on some keywords. And I started seeing like one article a week about blockchain, and then it was like 2 articles a week, and then the frequency just started increasing, and I was like, all right, there's something happening here, right? So it was early 2017. I started to look into crypto. The first day that I went, so I'd read a couple of articles, and then one day I decided to go home from after work from Bloomberg. I was like, all right, I'm going to go home and actually take a few hours and really look into what this blockchain and crypto stuff is. I did that, and I was kind of sold immediately. Like, I remember like that evening, I just had like this rush of energy. Just like my brain was on fire. Like, wow, this opens up so many possibilities. So many different industries can be transformed. Finance, even to the extent of like thinking about enterprise blockchains at that time, and maybe even to some extent now. I saw use cases for that as well. And so since then, just my excitement grew. I started going to a few meetups in New York at the time. I started my own crypto traders meetup in New York. And, the meetups were just getting crowded, more and more crowded. And just been looking at it closely in 2017. Decided to leave Bloomberg in early 2018, right when the bear market started. So really poor timing. But, nevertheless, I'm still glad that I did that, and have been in the industry ever since. And so initially we were kind of looking at some centralized exchange type of products with more superior trading technology. Just having that product background, it made me realize early on. Also, one of the reasons why I joined the industry is because the user experience and the hoops that people had to go through to kind of get involved in the space, it just was obvious that we were still really early. So we were exploring some CeFi products, and then 2020 happened. DeFi summer started, and once we started to see like, okay, some of the ideas that were white papers in 2017 and so are now becoming reality, and like billions of dollars are flowing into this industry, that's when we started looking deeper into DeFi and actually pivoted the company and like what we were doing from anything CeFi related to like fully DeFi. Started looking into Solana early on because Ethereum, in our experience, we had seen that when there's a bull market, Ethereum doesn't work too well, right? It's super expensive, and so finally there were some alternatives. Like before, I'd say 2020, like people were just betting on Ethereum being the only kind of like main chain, right? So it was good and refreshing to see some smart people talking about Solana early on, and that's how we started kind of getting into Solana, and since then have been just building multiple products. So I could go on for a really long time, so I'll pause here. Let Joel maybe share his journey.
Yeah, mine was quite easier. I've been working in marketing for a really long time consulting like Fortune 50 brands like Dove Soap, Corona Beer, Airbnb. And if you look at a lot of those brands I just mentioned, there's always this like aim to change society a bit. So like with Dove, making it acceptable for women to feel comfortable no matter what they look like. Corona with saving the beaches, and things of that nature. So I'm always very alert to things that can change society. So back in 2012, found Bitcoin, said I bought very little, and I said, this is probably going to be worth something, and I'll buy a little bit just so I keep an eye on it. And then in 2016, started getting a bit more serious about it, just on a personal level. And then after Corona, after the whole lockdown situation, just made me really think about, do I want to keep consulting for other brands, or do I want to actually really be part of something from start to finish that can create a real change in society? And that's when I reached out to Hisham, and he gave me the opportunity. He welcomed me aboard, and now we're on this mission, and I guess we'll get a little bit into that, but I'm super excited.
Cool, thanks for that. So both of you guys have serious background in when it comes to financial services. You mentioned Hisham Bloomberg, and you Santos like Airbnb and Corona and stuff like that. So I suppose like those experiences when it comes to those huge organizations is super useful, because you have a pretty grand vision, grand vision. And because I'm looking here at your website, and it's saying that we are building the ultimate ecosystem to help you cut your 50 years of work in half. You don't need to work for money once money works for you. I really like that. How can I become, how can I get out of the rat race with Aldrin? It's a pretty big vision. So I would love to hear more of that.
Yeah, happy to kick that off, and then Joa can probably jump on as well. But when we look at DeFi, right, it's the first time we see that it's something that has leveled the playing field, right? So it is financial inclusion for anyone. It could be someone sitting in, Bangladesh or Sri Lanka, and someone sitting in Canada have the same access, right? That was not possible before, and so that opens up a lot of opportunities for actually earning passive income, putting your money to work, so that you're basically growing your assets and growing your wealth along the way. So that was where we got sort of like this inspiration for how we're going to make Aldrin a platform where users can come in and people can just kind of like grow their wealth over time. And we can get into like the mechanics of it and how we're planning on doing it for the future. It's still really, really early on that mission for us. But that's sort of like what inspired us. And we're also seeing that financial literacy is really, really lacking all over the world, right? Like I went to like good schools in the US, and even though my background or education, you could say, is somewhat related to finance, I wasn't really taught how to build wealth or how to like kind of manage my own money. And I think a lot of people are just not taught that. So we want to kind of take on this journey and help people with potentially learning more about their finances and how they can put money to work and actually cut their working years in half, right? So if you look at an average kind of lifetime of working, that's around 40, 50 years that people are working. And so if along those 40, 50 years, you start investing and you start focusing on some passive income streams and start compounding along the way, you can actually find a lot of years back. You can earn those years back, and you can get that freedom to do whatever it is that you want to do. You don't have to be in that rat race for 50 years, right? Maybe you'll be in a comfortable place in 20 years. And especially with DeFi, where you can actually earn some really lucrative yields. And even if these yields were to kind of like drop a bit more than where we are right now, which I don't think that would be the case like anytime soon. But if that were to be still the case, the yield itself, like the tokens, you're sort of like getting a piece of innovation. You're getting a piece of the future. Right? You're going to see that growth as this industry grows. And so, to me, it's really exciting that so many people around the world now have this opportunity to kind of get involved. And whatever Aldrin can do to play a role in that, that's what we want to do.
I love that. It's like makes the playing field a little bit more even for like the big dogs to us regular people. I think that's super important.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was actually really inspired when I went to the Solana conference, and it was weird. All the people that were talking about millionaire funds were all looking for that next 10x coin, but all the billionaire funds were all looking for yield, and really made me look at why and try to understand it better. And it just became really clear. Like if you look at DeFi as a whole, there's not a ton of people that are actually focused on the yield strategy using crypto, right? They might own ETH, but then they're not staking it, or they're not providing liquidity, or maybe using an options vault or whatever it may be. And that's where I think the big opportunity is. Because a really small amount of money can become a huge amount of money with time, right? And it's actually a strategy that's safer than let me pick 5 tokens I really like and let's see what happens to them, versus even if the price of the token that you're invested in goes down, but the yield is high, you're still come out positive. And it's a way to really cut the amount of years you need to work in half, which I don't think most people are aware, but that number keeps increasing since the 90s. We used to work 40 years on average. Now we're working 50, and most people live till they're 70. So it's pretty crazy that you got 20 years when you're young of no work almost, and then it's your retirement, and that's it. Like, what about enjoying my 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s, and you know what I mean? It's pretty crazy. And before you used to be able to do that with real estate, but real estate is not accessible to everyone, right? That's why prior to this latest stock market boom, most millionaires were made in real estate. Now that the stock market boom, that's shifted a little bit, but prior to that, it was because of real estate that we had so many millionaires. And crypto, you can look at it that way, right? You're generating a passive income for having an asset, just like with real estate.
Reminds me of Sailor's talk in Up Only podcast like last week, where it was talking about Bitcoin being like real estate. It's nice.
Yeah.
But yeah,
there is
really
a lot of comparables. Yeah, there's a ton of comparables to real estate.
Okay, so using Aldrin, we would be on a path to better like economical situation, so to say, for us as individuals. We will be able to play the same game as these billionaires are playing, basically, I guess. Because creating financial freedom is a challenge. But as you say, like with blockchain tech, we all suddenly have this opportunity compared to how it was before. I connect a little bit to what you said, about working our whole lives and so on. I think that many politicians in the West, at least, are even like extending the period until when you can get pension from the government and so on. They want people to work longer until their 70s in certain places. So yeah, it's a really interesting take on that. Cool vision. So connected to financial freedom, I saw somewhere, actually I don't remember where, a freedom calculator. I was reading your docs and so on, and I saw something about the freedom calculator. Would you mind explaining a little bit more about this? Because man, like I want to be free, and like, can I calculate on how I could, achieve economical freedom with this calculator?
Joe, I want you to take this one. Are you on mute, Joe? You there?
No, I'm speaking. Hello?
Oh,
can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Freedom calculator, Joe. What's that about?
Yeah, we've launched like the minimal viable product. Let's say I wouldn't even call it a V1. Let's call it a 0.5 on our homepage, where you can go and you have these little buttons, and you can see if you start with $1,000, put in 100 every month based on staking RIN, what it would come out to in various years, right? It's obvious that APR fluctuates and everything else, but the V2, which we'll be working on, you'll be able to select any of our yielding products, which would be liquidity pools or staking or other things we have coming down the line. You can actually select those. You'll actually be able to input the exact how much you can imagine. You can only afford, $20 a month. it'll be able to calculate for you what that would equal in that many years. And you can actually select if you're super bearish, super bullish, like you're able to select, which will change the where the token price would be in the amount of time that you set it. So if you set it for 15 years, if you're super bullish, that means you think it's 3x, which isn't actually very super bullish, but we didn't want to go crazy either. But if you select that you're super bearish, it's half the price. It drops 50% from where it is now. So you'll be able to actually get a good vision of how much monthly income can I generate if I compound for X amount of years. And I thought that would be really useful because I think people, do you know the old thing where they're like, would you rather have $1 million or a penny every day for a month that doubles every day? And if you double a penny every day, it's 5 million. But if you took the million, it's only $1 million. It's kind of the same thing. Unless you can see it and someone tells you, it just sounds very unbelievable. Just like when you say, if I double a penny every day, you can make it 5 million in a month. It sounds kind of crazy. And that's why we have the calculator there so people can see it for themselves and actually plan out, hey, how do I get my freedom back and not be chained to a desk for 50 years of my life?
Man, I love that. And that is something that I would like to use myself. So much easier to have it visualized. And there was this book in Sweden a couple of years ago that was trending. That was like, save yourself to become a millionaire when you're 50. And it was literally like kind of towards that direction, but they didn't manage to visualize it in a good way. For me, when I kind of read the book and aspiring, with my ambitions, I tried to like, okay, I also want to be a millionaire. How do I save money? But they didn't visualize it. And I think that's important. So I really look forward to be able to use this tool. And connected to that, like when it comes to APRs and APYs and so on, I think you kind of mentioned that as well when you described the freedom calculator. So my question related to the APRs is like, it's kind of liquidity mining is probably what you mainly do right now, right? And that kind of attracts users and liquidity, but it's at this stage it's kind of like renting liquidity. I think that most people agree with that, connected to these bond discussions as well. So when it comes to liquidity mining and renting liquidity, how do you plan to tackle that? And can we, with the freedom calculator, like calculate on like these differences in these APRs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I think we all know that giving away like tokens and rewards for quote unquote renting liquidity, it's like a bootstrapping mechanism that's been applied all over DeFi. So we've done the same, but we're thinking about different kind of we're thinking about this in kind of like twofold, right? One is, what are the rewards or the APRs that we can give away on the AMM product, and the second part of this is, can we offer other products that also offer some sort of APR, right? And we're looking at both. So the first one, we're trying to basically, come up with a model where we are able to provide, because like at the end of the day, like all APR is, at least in my eyes, is not equal, right? Like you're if you're getting APR in the native token, if you're not dumping it right away and you're holding on to it, then obviously it's going to be different for each project. And the way that it's different is you're kind of betting on innovation. You're also longing that token. So what we're planning on doing with Aldrin, and we recently announced that, is we're actually launching, or kind of have launched, Aldrin Labs, and that's going to be our incubation platform, where it allows us to kind of work with new ideas and new innovations. I'm going a bit on the tangent, and I'll bring it back to APR, but the way that we kind of stand today in DeFi and look out is, I like to look at this in the next 3, 5, 10 year kind of time horizons, right? So we're going to see a lot of experimentation and innovation coming out of DeFi. And we're seeing some of that with DeFi 2.0, like Olympus DAO and some of those kind of models, which are interesting. And I don't think that's the end of it, right? We're just getting started. And so with Aldrin Labs, we allow ourselves to incubate new ideas, new products, work with good teams, and kind of have the flexibility to experiment and be innovating for years to come, and really become like a DeFi powerhouse, right? And part of that ecosystem is also driven by the fact that we want to launch these, or have these kind of complementary products and services get launched, and then they add value back to Aldrin. So One of the cases we're kind of contemplating is through the incubated projects that get launched. Some of them will add value back to Aldrin, and it could be in the form of airdrops or perhaps some sort of APR for LPs. And so that's where we're experimenting with increasing the APR, right? So, for example, if you're
that's cool.
someone that's so if you're a liquidity provider in an AMM, a lot of the AMMs are pretty similar in Solana and across other chains. Then you're just getting rewards and trading fees in one token. Or what if you were able to kind of get more, right? What if there was more innovation that was tied to you being an LP? You could have more privileges from the technology that was spinning out of the whole ecosystem. So that gives it a different spin. It doesn't solve the problem of having rewards being given out in tokens and emissions. However, it gives you sort of like this ability to bootstrap TVL more and more. And as you grow more and more TVL and you suck in more liquidity, it's obviously going to start to kind of generate more trading volume. And as the trading volume happens, there's more buyback that's happening, at least in the way the Aldrin tokenomics is. More rewards goes to stakers, more tokens get staked, and it just kind of kicks off this positive loop. Right? Potentially the price of RIN goes up, and when that goes up, the APR goes up even more. And so it's just kind of creating that positive cycle for the Aldrin AMM. And additionally, on the second part, we're looking and researching the ability to offer structured products either in internally or through partnerships throughout the ecosystem, so users can kind of come in, deposit their money, and be able to earn decent yield on it. And so there's a lot that we're kind of working on behind the scenes, and we'll be releasing some of these things in the coming weeks and months.
Interesting.
Yeah, we're even looking at 2 products that have a high yield and no emission at all, which would be very positive.
Nice. I'm intrigued by this incubation program that you guys have. So related to that, what does that really mean? What's the plan regarding this incubation program? You mentioned that there might be some like financial benefits for Aldrin or for the users of Aldrin with that. Is it some like rev share things involved there, or what's like the other thing that's this incubator program? Because I think that seems like a good kicker for you guys.
Yeah. So there's 2 projects in the pipeline right now. One is a money markets like lending, borrowing with some other capabilities being built around it. The other one is a wallet. So the way that we envision this ecosystem is, different ideas and products come out of it, and then there's going to be some cross integration, cross selling, if you may want to call it that. So for instance, it helps Aldrin with an integration where, let's say, if an LP that wants to use some leverage, on the Aldrin AMM, they'd be able to do that within Aldrin without having to go and use a different product or service, right? It's going to be powered by this incubated project, which is not exclusive to Aldrin. It's going to have its own partnerships, its own kind of growth and team growing the products and services, but it has that added benefit that Aldrin is integrated from like the beginning. So Aldrin users can benefit from it. It drives value back to that sister protocol, and that protocol is driving value back to Aldrin. If there's going to be some swaps involved, it uses Aldrin. It also allows us to kind of target different kind of audiences. And so when I think about Aldrin, and when we are looking at this, incubated project for lending, borrowing, these are very like DeFi native, crypto native kind of, projects and products. The third product that's, the second in the incubation pipeline is the wallet, the Buzz wallet. That is like, when I really look at the next, few 100 million people coming into crypto, it's going to be through some really simple to use applications. It could be through games, it could be through wallets. Wallets are going to play a big part in bringing, tens and then hundreds of millions of people into this space. And so once again, with those kind of incubated projects, they're in the background going to be powered by some of what's happening with Aldrin, right? Like if there's going to be some trading that needs to happen, that needs to be supported in that app, and that's where like kind of Aldrin integration comes in. So there's value coming back to Aldrin in different ways. It's through cross integration and kind of like building on top of each other. So those are the 2 that are in the pipeline, but there's also other ideas and kind of things that are being floating around, and this is super early for us, and I think super early for all of DeFi. So this incubation model there's going to be a lot more, products and services which will have some unique capabilities and interesting ideas born out of it.
Nice. And is this going to tie into your community to an extent as well, where people within your community can have a say regarding these projects, or?
I would say at some point, I mean, this definitely helps the community building side of it. Also, like, with some of these incubated projects, we're expecting that the way that the tokens get launched and the way the products get launched, it's in a very like kind of favorable way to the community, right? Like at the end of the day, we want to build an Aldrin ecosystem, and we realize that in DeFi, it's not only always going to be innovation that sets you apart, right? People will just fork things and suddenly, boom, somebody else can just launch a project as well, right? So the community is going to play a huge role in all of this, and our goal is to focus more on that. And with the incubated projects, the idea is to kind of provide more fair ways for communities to get involved. Be it, let's say, this NFT drop that's being worked on for the lending, borrowing, money markets project. That's going to have an NFT drop, perhaps a token drop in the future, which will not have any like pre-sales or any like VC discounts or anything like that. Not to say that VCs are bad by any means. Like, some VCs are really good, and some are bad, just like everywhere. Like you'll see some people are good, some are bad. But in terms of helping kind of the community gather around and be involved in day one in a more meaningful way, right? And I think we've all gotten that criticism for Solana DeFi from some of the outsiders, and we just got to do better. We just have to kind of correct the course a little bit and build a really solid community around all the DeFi protocols, especially the ones that we're planning on kind of getting involved in as an incubator.
Oh, that's really cool. I like that approach a lot. And we just got a question from Ellie. I was just about to bring that up as well. But yeah, I look forward to following this incubation program of yours. I think that's the right way to go about it. It would help like the whole ecosystem as well to do so. So since Ellie mentioned this now with your logo type, I'm gonna head over to that question I prepared. So I think the brand is pretty cool. The name Aldrin, I suppose that is inspired by Buzz Aldrin. This looks like an astronaut, the logo type you guys have. So who came up with that? And is it really like connected to Buzz Aldrin? And is it really an astronaut? Is it an alien perhaps? I don't know.
Yeah. That's Joa's kind of baby. I'll let him speak to that.
Yeah. I started to think of and even when we think about the halving of work time, right? We said, okay, we want to help people get to the moon, which is typical DeFi lingo, right? Except we don't want to be the guys that make it to the moon. We want to help our clients get there. So I just started looking around. Okay, what's it mean to get to the moon? Well, some people it's about 10xing. Some people it's about just being free. What do people want at the end is just to be free. So looked around many different things that have happened through history or animals or whatever. And, what is someone who helped but didn't really become as famous as someone they helped? And it's funny because Armstrong is very well known for saying one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But Buzz Aldrin was the pilot who got him there, right? He was the one that was piloting the craft. And that's why it is 100% named after Buzz Aldrin. But it's because he helped pilot someone to the moon. And that's what we want to do. And that's where it comes from.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. Like the reason that I actually like the name was all of what Joa just mentioned, but I felt like it was really like simple, memorable, easy to kind of remember. And it checked like 3 boxes for me, right? So it's retail friendly, where like, I think retail people would appreciate it. If tomorrow we're doing something a bit more serious and had some institutional investors or traders getting involved, like, it doesn't sound goofy. We could still pull it off. And then I think it also has a really nice like reference to everybody wants their coin and crypto to go to the moon. And so when I was just like, oh man, it checks all these 3 boxes. Like that's it. This is what we're gonna go with.
I gotta be honest. Like usually I don't like moon talk or whatever, but this is actually the first time there's some substance behind it. and some thoughts to it as well with some deeper meaning. So I really like what I'm hearing there. That's so cool.
That's
Thanks
20 years of marketing experience that helped that come to life.
All those coronas.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, cool. And I guess we're going to be a little bit over time here in the AMA. We're 36 minutes in, but we started like 10 minutes later than what we usually do. So I'm going to take this opportunity to ask another question. And you guys have a really interesting approach. I think I said it in the beginning of this session. You're starting off as a DEX, but you're moving towards a centralized exchange as well to be part of your portfolio of products. All really cool and interesting. We'd like to hear more about that. But first and foremost, you guys are working on like the Buzz wallet, like your own wallet, which is a little bit special and different from most other DEXs and AMMs. So what's the plan regarding the Buzz wallet there?
Yeah, it kind of goes back to, as I was saying earlier, that wallets are going to be the kind of like gateway for people to get into crypto, right? And if we look at like where wallets stand today, like MetaMask has about like 20 million plus users, Anthem has about 2 million users. That's great start to both of them. But when you look at few 100 million people, or potentially up to 1 billion people getting into crypto, we're really, really early, right? And the way that we see wallets is it's probably not going to be winner take all. Like there are going to be different wallets with different user experiences, catering to different societies, maybe different kind of regions. And so that's sort of like the take that we have. And then today, like the wallet experience is really like financial, and it's just about you as an individual, right? So it's just your wallet and your money in there. And the Buzz wallet is being designed to be sort of like your gateway into Web3, right? It's your door into Web3. So it's going to have finance components into it, right? Naturally, as I mentioned, it'll be connected to some of the behind the scenes crypto protocols that we have, like Aldrin, money markets. But we're also looking at, supporting NFTs, perhaps looking at some different social components, on how it'll have like different communities and more involvement. So it's not just you as an individual just using an app alone, but it's like more interaction and more social capabilities, and perhaps some other use cases. Like it's kind of early for that, but that's sort of like the thinking behind it. And like looking at wallets in general, like there's a lot of room to be improved and for a lot more innovation to come out of that. Like MetaMask is yeah, it's king right now, but like it's not really that great. The fact that I've had to, yeah, like the fact that sometimes like I've had to like go and use it on Firefox because like it wasn't working on Chrome. Like the fact that they're charging ridiculous fees, the fact that it doesn't really allow you to do much else. Yeah, the bar hasn't been set really high. So yeah, in our view, like wallets are going to be targeting a very different kind of user, which is not like the Aldrin user directly, or not like some super DeFi degen kind of trader or user, right?
Nice. I agree with that long-term vision. Like I think a lot of it's going to be concentrated to wallets or aggregators for that sense. Cool. Also, I was checking your Twitter, and I saw an update yesterday about something that everybody kind of appreciates a lot, which is an airdrop. But the funny part about this, I was like, oh snap, an airdrop, nice. But there's like a stand up for frogs hashtag there. And like, hey Frog Nation. There's like frogs involved here to some degree. And I'm not sure if it's the Pepper the Frog or if it's some other thing. But yeah, I would love to hear more about what this airdrop really means and where these frogs comes into the picture.
Yeah, sure. So Frog Nation is, I would say, the most powerful DeFi community, the largest DeFi community, right? They're involved under like the projects on other chains, so they're not on Solana, but like they are mainly in part of the group of Wonderland Time, Abracadabra Money, Popsicle Finance, and a few other kind of protocols that they're getting involved in. And I feel like it was when I kind of started looking into that community, I became really inspired, and I felt like, wow, like this is exactly like what the spirit of DeFi should be. How people come together, they have a chance to kind of get involved, make decisions, have power in their hands, and not be kind of like getting involved in products that we mentioned, like are fully like VC discount backed kind of products and services. Then suddenly, with all this great stuff that was happening for them, we see that one of the key members or the CFO of one of the products and projects, Wonderland Time, was like a criminal, was like a fraudster. This guy had a really bad history with the
it's connected to the whole like Wonderland debacle. Oh, okay, I saw something about that. Now I get it.
Yeah, and like that had me really pissed off. Honestly, like I felt really pissed off. Like there are like hundreds of thousands of people in this community, and they're getting burned. Partly it's their fault, right? If they trade with like crazy leverage, I understand that. Or if they're looking at some crazy APYs, yes, that's part of the equation. But that doesn't mean that there should be bad actors, right? So if the largest DeFi community is being led by a couple of fraudsters, like what does that mean for the whole industry? What does that mean for people getting in and kind of looking at this industry and wanting to come in and kind of get involved, right? We can't sit around and just let fraudsters take all the spotlight and like kind of destroy it and ruin it and set the whole industry back. And so, the funny thing is,
so you took some like social responsibility around DeFi to an extent. You know what? Like this kind of reminds me a lot about what happened with SushiSwap. Like they did this vampire thing with Uniswap. They got like a huge community and user base super quickly, and just it blew up, right? And then suddenly everybody got a rug pulled. But then, what was it? Like, was it Binance and FTX? They went together and just like kind of saved everybody for the greater good and retained like, the DeFi momentum to a degree. So this is really cool what you guys are doing, in my opinion. Like really good. Like thanks for that. I think it's important that that projects such as you and others, like I mentioned, FTX, Binance, come together and do our best to take this kind of social responsibility in these aspects, right? So, okay, now that I understand the frog thing, it's not a frog meme. It's actually something very meaningful. Thanks, I guess. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, my pleasure. Yeah. So we've been kind of, spending a lot of hours internally actually trying to like coordinate this thing, putting some of our internal plans on hold to get this to reach all the Frog Nation eventually. So we just announced this yesterday. Obviously we're nowhere near like the largest project in DeFi, so we don't have the reach, but we're starting to involve our community and also doing an outreach to the Frog Nation community, like, to let them know like there is hope. Like the good leaders, people that want to do right by their communities need to stand up. They need to come and like kind of like fill the void that's being left behind by fraudsters.
Man, that's really inspiring, to be honest. And I think that the chefs in Marinade here is probably all inspired by this and should look into how we can expand towards these kind of things as well.
It'd be really cool one day. It would be really cool one day to just have, when there's a project that has a fraudster involved, projects that are coming that are doing airdrops, just whitelist the people from those projects to help them get back up and show that there's still good actors in the space. That would be awesome to see. And that's kind of what we're trying to start, let's say.
Yeah. We should definitely talk more about that. Okay, thanks a lot again. Really impressive, to be honest. So let's move forward. I think it's time for us to start addressing the questions from the audience. There are a couple of more things I would like to ask. I might just like sneak those in together with the questions from the audience. So as we move forward to this section of the AMA, we'll just do the lottery then for the Marinators, I guess. So if you heard me before, what you need to do is just write an emoji. You need to have the Marinator roll to be able to win. And the emoji is, of course, the Aldrin logotype. And I just paste the emoji here in the chat. So if you're a Marinator, just drop that emoji. That means you get a lottery ticket. And it's some RIN tokens involved. No, sorry, Marinade tokens involved. This one, the RIN tokens is for the best question. So as we see this pretty awesome logotype popping into the chat here, I will take the last question from me then. As we're saying, this emojis popping in. You guys have been really supportive of mSOL and what Marinade is trying to accomplish with the decentralization and securing the Solana network. So thanks a lot for your help with that. And so as heavy supporters of mSOLs from the get-go and proper like fellow decentralizers, is this something that your community understands and appreciates, or is this something more of like a team effort, or what's your guys' take on that?
Yeah, first of all, I would say like we really appreciate this partnership and what Marinade is doing for Solana, for the teams that are involved. You know, I haven't worked really closely with your team. I know my team is working closely with you guys, but like it's been a great experience. And like we've seen so much more adoption of mSOL on our protocol, like far outpacing more native SOL, right? So for us, I think our users are definitely super involved, and our pools with Marinade are by far the largest. And we didn't know, like when we were launching, we had no idea what was going to happen. But once we started seeing that, it was really like, you know, kind of amazing to see. And I believe when we launched, we had the partnership already. So like, you know, we've been tied to Marinade since the launch of our AMM. We haven't been, you know, kind of separate ever before that either. So appreciate all the work that you guys are doing.
Thanks. Appreciate what you guys are doing as well. I mean, from our standpoint, all SOL should be staked. That's the best for the network. So nice to hear that that you're having pretty good momentum there with the mSOL pairs. Actually, It's best for the network, at least in my opinion and in your opinion. Nice. So let's go and pick some questions from the audience. We have some cool questions. I'm gonna start off with Insania. Your question there. So we'll do that as question number one. I'm gonna paste Hisham and Joe. I'm gonna paste the link to the question in case I read it in a bad way. And there's the first question. You guys with a finance background and understanding a massive network of let me reread this. You guys with a finance background and with an understanding and a massive network of advisors out there. There are about 68 million people using Coinbase as individuals. Is there room for advisors to partner with Aldrin to give opinions of outside traditional allocations? Gosh, I read that like a retard. Well, I hope you understand the question.
Yeah, I understand it.
Go ahead, Joe.
Hisham, go ahead.
I was gonna.
Not only
you can take it.
Yeah, not only are we open to it, but we're actually going to actively be looking at, you know, is there a possibility for yield as a service, for example, with traditional banking, where there's a hybrid, right? Like there always has to be people to come over to DeFi, and we think, you know, working with a bank or a neobank or a SEX or the wallet, all these things are gateways to understanding DeFi better. So not only can an advisor come to us and work with us, but we will be actively seeking these type of relationships.
Cool. I guess that settles it. I wonder if Coinbase is doing any moves towards the decentralized exchanges, like aspect of things. Not sure. Okay, cool. Let's find another question. And we had one that came in recently. Let's see, where was it? Massimiliano. What's up, dude? Your question is going to be the question number 2. This one is probably easier for me to read. How do you see your platform in 5 years? Where are you guys in 5 years?
Yeah, it's a good question. Generally, it's hard to kind of predict where the industry will be in 5 years, but some things that I see are, you know, we're probably looking at a $20 to $40 trillion market cap, and seeing just a lot more, you know, of traditional finance getting into this industry. As for Aldrin itself, you know, we definitely are working on making Aldrin one of the best exchanges possible, right? Introducing more and more functionality and use cases to make it the top exchange on Solana, but not just in Solana, make it one of the top in all of DeFi. But I'm also excited about Aldrin Labs, and I feel like we really want to build like a DeFi powerhouse, and that's what we're working towards, right? We are building out our research team, we're building out an amazing marketing team, hiring a lot of amazing devs, and really kind of building out one of the best teams in DeFi to be able to kind of build and innovate on Aldrin, but also come up with new ideas and new innovations. And so goal is to kind of be part of mass adoption in a meaningful way. So when we look at 5 years out and say, we want 500 million or 1 billion people to be using, DeFi, we want Aldrin to be at the top of the list of who are the enablers, right? We want to be the enablers. Yeah, that's what I would say.
I also see this as the way I see it in 5 years is a lot of this stuff becomes invisible. Like Aldrin becomes invisible, Marinade becomes invisible to the general public, because that's when we know that we are creating a better user experience, right? It's, if you think of the banking industry, you put money into a savings account, you have no idea if it's a maximum funded annuity or if it's a mutual fund or what it is. It's invisible to the client. It's focused on what benefits the client. So think of a lot of the backbone that we're building being almost B2B. Doesn't mean a client can't come and use it, but majority of the clients, if we grow by 10x in terms of users, a lot of them won't even see, they won't know, just like you don't know when you go to a bank what you do with certain things. And that's kind of that's actually the hope I have, because then we know we did something right and clients are able to use it really easily.
Cool. I think that's a really good reply to that question. I'm going to follow up with a question from Kichio that is kind of touching upon what you just mentioned. But before that, just want to remind everybody who is listening now and in the recording, and in particular those who are marinators, we do have ongoing daily contest for marinators, specifically in the GM chat. Posted the link to the GM chat there. So the contest means that you simply write GM in the chat. And that means you gain kind of a lottery ticket, and you might win, 4 USDC to pay for a coffee on a daily basis. So be cool and wish everybody a good morning once a day in the GM chat. You might get some free coffee. So let's move forward with the third question then, that tied into what you just talked about from Kichio. And he says, following the current negative sentiment on DeFi, which is, in your opinion, the best way to communicate to the public and letting them know that a platform is legit and reliable? I think it is important to build a stronger confidence on DeFi for the general public. That's a great question. And what's your take on that, guys?
Yeah, I think it's not like one single thing, but it's probably a combination of things, right? So I feel like looking at the teams, who the people are. I get that in DeFi, you can be anonymous, whatever level of anonymity, whatever level of kind of anonymous you could be. I just butchered that word, but in our case, I personally feel like I need to be out there for Aldrin, so people know who's behind it. People understand, okay, you know what, this is like a really like a legit team. We're trying to build it out as a proper how I would operate just any other startup. So we're taking slightly a bit of a different approach. What we can do and what we think is important is looking at security more seriously. For example, I see that Marinade has had multiple audits, which is great to see. When we were launching our AMM, for instance, we were waiting for the audits to get completed, and that slowed us down a little bit, right? So basically, making sure that the audits are getting completed, making sure that people can understand who are the people behind the team, what their plans are, what their backgrounds are, and hopefully we can have some better standards, better standards of judging protocols and products and services. The space is so new that it's hard to set standard when there's so many projects launching. It's the bull market, which anyways creates so much noise and hype. That also unfortunately attracts a lot of the bad actors, right? When they realize, oh, it's the bull market, people really want to just ape in to anything that's going to look interesting. And so I don't know if I have a great answer for you, right? But it's just basically building a track record, and trusting the teams. And so it's just really comes down to like how the teams are kind of running that project and that protocol, in my opinion. And it's even true with like some centralized exchanges, right? Like for example, I know a lot of people that just trust Binance because like they've just built that reputation. So even though Binance got hacked, people weren't too worried. So I'd say we probably need to just set really good standards, in terms of the team members and the steps that they're taking to ensure that they're building safe, user-friendly products.
Cool, cool. That's a good reply. Funds are safer. I just thought about that when you mentioned to Binance. They managed to pull off a pretty cool meme there. So let's move forward to question number 4. Already pasted a link in the chat, and this is from Chef Serba. And he says, as a decentralized protocol that explores CeFi options, do you believe there is a middle ground like CDeFi with KYC to allow some regulation, or is your fight to stay on the decentralized side? Are you planning different options depending on how regulation evolves on those topics? And I think that's super interesting since you guys currently are DEX, but you have your centralized exchange plan as well. So like, how does that tie in with the whole KYC? How does DeFi and CeFi merge in your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, DeFi, we're watching regulators closely, right? As we know that this industry is still new, and typically what happens is like the regulators are going to be like, maybe like 2-3 years behind, right? But in DeFi's case, I think they're starting to catch up and kind of be more proactive earlier. So we're keeping a close eye on how DeFi is going to evolve. In terms of CeFi, yeah, any product we launch on that side, it's definitely going to be KYC and KYC friendly. We haven't fully flushed out like all the details because it's still like a little bit further out on how exactly the integration and where the integrations will happen and what that means for the DeFi component. Right now, if you go use our DEX, like there's no KYC, obviously. But if we were to have the SEX launch tomorrow, it would certainly have an acceptable level of KYC in there. Integration part, we're going to be probably planning a little bit later in the year to figure out what pieces are going to work together.
Cool.
Can I just add something to that real quick? Because I think it actually answers some of the other questions I've seen here. If you think of a supermarket versus an online supermarket, they're going to do business in a very different way, right? If you're built from the ground up being an online supermarket, you're going to think about automation, delivery. Your focus is somewhere else. At the moment, all the SEXs that are starting to add some DEX features, the DEX features are add-ons. We're looking at a SEX as a way to create a gateway to a DEX. So there might be some bridges where there's a hybrid of products, but the idea eventually, that is what we believe, is it should be decentralized. The future is decentralized. And we're building it that way from the ground up instead of the other way around, where we started as a SEX and go to a DEX.
Also, I can't come up with any other project that did the same approach. Usually it's the opposite, right? Super interesting. I think that gives you certain perks as well. In many aspects, I could probably talk for a long time about my opinion regarding this, but my opinion is not important right now. So we'll move forward to the next question. And I think this is a healthy question from Bearhodl. And it is, what makes the RIN token different from Radium's Ray token?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked too deeply into Radium's Ray token and how their tokenomics are working exactly. So can't speak to any like big obvious differences. However, our tokenomics revolves around the use case for RIN being, kind of staking rewards, right? It's a income sharing kind of a model where if you stake RIN, then you're eligible to earn part of the fees from the AMM. That's just a starting use case. As we build out more products and services within RIN, we're always thinking about how we increase the utility, for example, for RIN as well. And one of the things we're kind of thinking about right now is how can we make staked RIN more useful? And so we're experimenting with the concept of when you stake RIN, we're going to be providing a derivative of that, perhaps like an SRIN, and then you can go and use SRIN and some of the other DeFi kind of services and protocols that are going to be part of the incubation project. So you can stake it, earn rewards, but still be able to do other things with your staked RIN. So yeah, I mean, overall, any new product and service that we build, we'll be figuring out how the value gets accrued to the token.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add to that is, what's the difference between John Doe and Cristiano Ronaldo? Right, it's focus. Right, our focus is really clear. What we want to do, we want to half the amount of years people need to work. Our tokenomics is built around that. The products we're building are built around that. Everything that we'll build will be built around that in one way or another. And I think that's what will differentiate us. I also haven't looked deeply at them, so I don't know what their focus is. But ours, I think, is really clear to everyone now. Exactly what we're focused on fixing.
Yeah, definitely. And to kind of top up that question, we could follow that one up with what Socrates Janssen wrote. DEX reward emissions typically result in constant sell pressure on the token. How can Aldrin counter this with RIN? Kind of touched upon this previously, but maybe you could circle back to that.
Yeah, for sure. I think like the one thing that we're doing is using this Aldrin labs and incubated projects to kind of come and add value back to some of the Aldrin products, and that's going to reduce the pressure on RIN being the only token for emissions. So that's one way that we are going to have something in the short term, and hopefully we use that as a catalyst to suck in more TVL, and then that kind of kicks off the cycle where there's just kind of like organic growth that starts to happen from that, and then we don't have to rely too much on giving away RIN rewards. We're looking at obviously things that are interesting in DeFi, the VE models, looking into all of those things. It's still kind of early, but the research is going on. Like, we do realize that there's going to be a shift in tokenomics in the near future, and it's not always going to be just kind of like, just giving away RIN tokens and letting people dump it. So there's the short-term plan from the Aldrin Labs. We feel like the staking mechanism and creating more use cases for the staked RIN, these things will work together to benefit and make RIN a strong token. Like, it's not going to be like a one thing that does it, right? So small kind of efforts on multiple fronts will ease the emissions.
Yeah, I think one of the things that'll get people excited is once we do launch the SEX, which is longer term, just like we're using the fees from the DEX to redistribute to stakers, we'll use the fees from the SEX to buy back and burn as well. So it's there's, like Hisham said, we're attacking that from multiple fronts, and we have short-term solutions and long-term solutions for that.
Cool. I like what I'm hearing. I feel like the ape energy is coming into my body right now. No financial advice, everybody listening. But I do have a bias for Aldrin. I really like what they're doing, so keep that in mind. I think we're done with all the questions from the audience right now. I do have one last question myself that I would like to address, and that is your roadmap. And it's there's a lot of things on your roadmap that I find interesting. Like, really, it's like a smorgasbord with desserts. And I'm going to paste the link to that page with the roadmap. So the question is, in your roadmap there for 2022, which part of it are you personally like most excited for? There's a lot of cool things. We're going to share a screenshot of that as well.
Oh, that's a really good question.
It's difficult to choose when there's so much awesome stuff there. I know, but there might be something that you're in particular like, looking forward to. Maybe.
I'm actually looking forward so I'll probably pick one or two, right? So the one that I'm in the short term interested in is the launch of our DTWAP. And that's exciting for me because it has sort of like this this unknown factor, right? Like we don't know what the response is going to be when we launch it. It's in closed beta right now, but the idea is for whales to be able to execute large orders in a fully decentralized way, right? So the TWAP order is kind of very commonly used in traditional, centralized trading world, right? If you want to buy $50 million worth of Solana, you're not going to just basically go and like buy it on an AMM, right? So what this DTWAP will do is it'll be a user can come interact with that contract. It's all on chain. They'll be able to say, all right, I want to buy or sell $50 million worth of Solana across 5 days. And then the program is going to take that, it's going to break it up into small pieces and post, those small pieces every 15 seconds. And there's going to be a level of like either a premium or a slight discount associated with it, depending on if you're buying or selling. And then that creates sort of like this opportunity for the arbitrageurs to come in and kind of pick that up, and then they can either hold it or they can go and kind of trade it against an AMM, for example, on Aldrin or even other AMMs. And so it really can drive a lot of volume to Aldrin if this gets adopted. So I'm super excited about that. We're talking to a few whales for them to kind of test it out and give feedback. That's, I would say, something that's super, like, it's kind of exciting for me. I'm also excited about like the whole incubation Aldrin Labs, right? Because there's a lot of research going on internally, and we're going to be increasing the capacity of our research team, and also having amazing founders and teams that are looking to get incubated to come and talk to us, so that we kind of work on new ideas in DeFi. And as I see it, as I mentioned earlier, like we're going to come up with interesting tokenomics, interesting products and services for years to come. Like this is just getting started. And it is something that reminds me of when I joined the industry in 2017, and like I thought about like the concept of programmable money. We're just scratching the surface of it, right? Like it has these amazing capabilities of like incentivizing certain groups of people to do certain things, and there's so much creativity, so much could be done with it, right? And I think like we're seeing that now in DeFi in kind of like early ways with some of the tokenomics models of DeFi 1.0, DeFi 2.0. The DAOs, the way that they're building, there's just going to be so much exciting stuff. I would say like Aldrin Labs really excites me as well.
Nice. Thanks for that. I'm going to looking deeper into that DTWAP thing. Try to educate myself a little bit. Well, thanks. So we have 6 questions from the audience. And now, guys, it's up to you to pick the best one that will receive some RIN tokens from us. So I pasted links to all the questions here in the chat, just to make it a little bit easier for everybody involved here. So which one is the best?
How much was the reward again? Sorry, I forgot that. You mentioned it in the beginning.
It's like $30 of RIN tokens.
I really don't want to pick one. I think they were all really good questions. So how about a reward for all the questions, all 6 of them?
Whoa, I have no problem with that. That sounds even cooler. So
let's do it.
Okay, so everybody who asked a question here that I brought up will receive some RIN tokens. And Hisham, how many tokens should they get then? So since I said $30 worth of tokens to one, how are we doing this?
You mean how the distribution will happen?
Yeah, exactly. Or how many tokens should every person get here now?
Yeah, I have to look at the token price. I haven't looked at it today. It's probably somewhere around 160, 170. But for distribution, they can either I guess join our Discord. I see Diogo from our team is also listening in. He can help facilitate in terms of getting the RIN tokens to them. So we'll get them the $30 worth. They can drop their addresses to us, and we'll make it happen.
Okay, cool. So I'll assist with that as well. But we can just talk about the details after this. But that is awesome news and a good surprise for me as well. Everybody who asked the question that we talked with the gentleman from Aldrin about, they're going to receive a bunch of RIN tokens to get you started on the Aldrin DEX. And I also recommend everybody who has taken interest in what Aldrin is building here, which is they have a quite unique approach. I hope you guys understood this. It was like first going with the DEX thing and then to like the CFI thing after that. I would recommend joining their Discord and also following them on Twitter to get further acquainted with what they're doing here. I think personally, Aldrin has a really cool future ahead of them. And I'm super grateful for their efforts with mSOL and helping us decentralize and secure the Solana network, and also grow the DeFi ecosystem with the mSOL. So thanks everybody who's been listening in, but also thanks a lot, guys, for taking your time, Johan, Hisham. It's been super interesting and educational.
Yeah, I want to congratulate you
thank
also.
You so much.
I think this is one of the best AMMs I've been a part of. So nice job.
Oh, really? Thanks. Even though I sound like a retard at times there with the questions.
Don't we all do. Don't worry.
Yeah, I was so happy, right, Hisham, when you destroyed that word. I was like, okay, I'm not alone anymore. Okay, so thanks.
We're all humans.
Yeah. So I hope to see some of the audience here in the Aldrin Discord later on. And yeah, stay safe. And I hope the market stays green during the weekend. Take care, everybody. And thanks again. Bye-bye.
Take care.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye-bye.